Meet NayoDM, the complete data migration toolkit for IFS Cloud. Every tool you need lives in one intuitive workspace. It installs as an independent component, so there's no conflict with your core code, and it works dynamically across IFS Cloud versions. Connect to any environment, migrate straight into IFS Cloud, or pull data directly from a legacy IFS IE system, App 7, 9, or 10. Sign-in is secure by default using OpenID Connect with your organization's own credentials and roles. Data volume is never a problem. Where other tools time out, NayoDM streams millions of rows without limits. Work from familiar Excel files with sheet selection, reuse import templates, and extract live IFS Cloud tables straight to CSV file whenever you need them. Mapping is where NayoDM saves you the most time. It automatically matches your Excel file or legacy IE system table headers to the target IFS table, surfaces every field's metadata and enumerations, and lets you transform values with JavaScript logic. Custom fields and custom tables, fully supported. Fewer errors by design. Two-stage pre-checks validate field rules and data dependencies before you ever run. And the dependency analyzer maps out missing tables and puts your entire migration scope into the correct sequence automatically. For complex cases, build advanced processing workflows. Chain multi-step migrations with record loops, branches, and custom PL SQL. It's how you handle transactional data and post-migration state changes with real business logic. NayoDM goes beyond tables. Migrate documents into IFS Cloud, associated with the right business records, and mass create IAM clients and service users in a single step. No manual setup required. Through it all, you see everything in real time. Success, insert, update, and failure counts across every function. And behind the product is a dedicated team of migration experts ready to help. NayoDM. One tool for every IFS cloud migration.
This is an overview of NayoDM tool. We will be going over the application configurations, project configurations, the dependency analyzer tool, data migration flow, container data insights, migration workflows, as well as document migration and IAM client migration. NayoDM is a tool that provides several functionalities in order to migrate and import data into IFS. You can do data migrations, migration workflows, functionality that allows you to create multi-step migrations with complex business logic. Document migration, which will ease the import and association of documents with various business entities and records. And IAM client migration, which allows the ability to mass create IAM clients and service users in IFS. In settings, we can set the configuration to multiple environments. We also have a help button that will give you step-by-step directions into each one of our functionalities. If you have just installed your tool, you will see this on your landing page. You can go to Settings, click on IFS Environments, and Add IFS Environment. Here it will ask you details about the environment that you want to connect to. You can also go to the Help Guide, Installation, IFS Configuration, and get the details on where to find this information in IFS. We can connect to two different types of environments. The IFS Cloud, which is in the environment you want to migrate into, and your IFS IEE client, which are only used for source data. Once you have gone to IFS and created your IAM client, you can retrieve these details and enter them onto the screen. You can select Create, and you will see that this environment is now added. You can go on and create as many environment connections as needed. Once you've connected all the cloud environments that you need for your project, you can select which is the current environment. If you will be using any of the previous environments, such as an apps 10 or an apps 8, for your source data, you can make the connection here. Once you've entered the details to your environment, you will want to test the connection and click Create. Unlike the other environment, this can only be set as a source connection, so you cannot set this as your current environment for migration. When doing data migration with the NayoDM, you always work with the project. The project is going to hold the scope of all the tables that you're going to migrate data into. When you are ready to begin, you will have to either import, create a new one, or open an existing one. Usually during data migration, you may work with more than one environment. If that is the case, and that's when you would export and import projects. The projects can be exported and imported as you move through environments or you're working with different users. It comes as a JSON file, so you can import or export directly to your computer and share as needed. When opening an existing project, you can search by name, but remember that all users within this environment do have access to make changes. In order to create a new project, you want to make sure that you have a unique name. When selecting modules, if you're going to do a full migration pass, it is suggested that you select all, unless you're going to be working with a specific area. And now you can see that your project has been created. You can delete it if needed, or you can make changes to the description as your migration moves forward. Now that the project has been created, you can begin adding to your scope. You can add one or multiple tables at a time. And as you move your migration, you will see that the scope within your project will change. Once your scope has been created, you can go ahead and export this. You can save this file for future migration passes, or you can share with other users. You're also able to navigate through other projects just by typing and clicking on the name. Once the project and your scope is complete, you are ready to begin your data migration. Once you're ready to begin your migration, you will either create a project or select an existing one. Once you've added all the entities into your scope, you will go into Dependency Analyzer. Here is a list of all the containers that you've selected to migrate data into. When you open the dependency trees, you will see all the data that needs to be migrated prior to you migrating this container. In most cases, this will be basic data. But in some cases, you might be missing a master file. For example, in order to migrate inventory parts, we will need to make sure that part catalog is added to your scope. You can add this in your project workspace, or you can go ahead and click Add Here and add it directly to your scope. As you can see, now there is a number, which means that it has been added to list. And you can keep going down as far as you like for each container, but the default will be set to 1 depth. Once you have gone through the dependency tree and confirmed that all the containers that you want are in the scope, you can find a sequence. This sequence is generated by IFS logic. Currently, these containers are numbered based on how you add them to your scope. But here you can see the suggested IFS sequence. You can download this into a CSV file, and this is a list of the complete dependency tree if you download the file. You can also resequence from here. And that is how you confirm that you have the entire scope before you begin your migration process. When you open NayoDM, the data migration is your landing page. Once you're ready to begin, you want to confirm that you have connected to the correct environment. If you need to make a change, you can go to Settings, IFS Environments, and select the proper current environment. You can also add a new IFS environment, whether it's going to be a cloud environment or an IFS IE source data environment here. In the help window, we have detailed steps on how to connect to your environment, as well as a step-by-step data migration guide. Once we're ready to begin, we will find our project. You can either import the JSON file, you can create a new project, or select an existing one. Once you open the project, this is going to be your scope. We have the option to modify your scope by adding entities, You can also use a dependency analyzer to confirm that you have a complete scope. As your scope grows, we have the option of grouping the containers by module, or you can also just search by name. Today we're going to be migrating supplier headers, which is going to be the supplier info general table. The buttons here will take you to the migration process. You can regenerate the table, especially if you have added and published custom fields in IFS. If you need to migrate into database fields, you also have that ability. The first step in the migration process is to import the data into a CNT table, which is a temporary table that will hold and validate the data before migrating into IFS. The second step is to migrate into IFS. Here we have a test mode, which will run through the entire business logic without committing into IFS tables. And then you also have the option to migrate directly into IFS. Where process is used once you've completed the migration successfully and you're ready to begin your following pass, or if you have a new data set that needs to be migrated. The post-migration data processing step is only for certain tables. For example, if you're migrating manufacturing structures and need to release estates. Container configuration will show you all the details about the table that you're going to be migrating into. You can also add columns here that may help you with the post-processing step. This pre-configured select statements can help you during the mapping process or querying of your legacy data. Downloading the CSV file will also help as you begin to map your data. The first tab is all the headers in the table, and the second tab is the details for each field. Container data will show you your current progress. This is an overview of the latest migration. The Container Data tab will show you the data that you have loaded from your file. In the overview screen, you will see the history of the migration jobs that were run. Here's your background job IDs and the migration job that was ran. Whether it was an import or a test migration or a migration into IFS. To the left here, you will see the results of your current migration. Once you have your legacy data ready to migrate, you can select Import. And here you have two options. You can either select your Excel file. We also have the option of using previous versions of IFS as your source data. If you've gone through your settings and connected this environment, you will see the option here. I can look at the data in that table. I can write a query of the data that I want to migrate. And here I have my results, and I could use this data set for migration. Or I could go and select my Excel file. When you're working with Excel, you can have different data sets in each tab. And here you would select which one. You can select a data range if you don't want to migrate your entire data set. Confirm the date format. Here you see the smart mapping happening in real time. The smart mapping tool will always have a 75% default. It's going to match based off the headers in your legacy data and IFS Cloud table. The goal with our mapping tool is to be able to reduce the amount of errors that we see at the end of migration. You can review the data that you have loaded. You can also confirm that you have data in all the fields that can't be null. Validate the fields that are mapped. You can also create logic using JavaScript and its functionalities. And you can use some of the preset shortcuts. Your mapping can be saved if you made a lot of changes. You can save it as a JSON file to your computer. You can also load mapping from a previous session, or you can refer to your recent history. Once you're ready, we can go to the pre-validation checks. This is going to check formats as well as no fields. And basic data is going to confirm that your data exists in IFS. Once you have passed your validation checks, you can click Next, and here we're ready to import into our CNT table. If you have loaded data into this table before, you can go ahead and truncate. We also have the option to delete data from all the tables within this project, but this would only be necessary if you are ready to begin a new pass. With larger volumes, you can select the batch size in which you want to commit. And you can import the data. As you can see, you're going to always have real-time load on your screen and notification windows to let you know that the process has been completed. The job has been completed with 20 rows imported, 0 failed. And here, as you can see in the overview, we have 24 records that are migrated successfully. Once you're ready to migrate, you have different options to insert, update, and test mode. For test mode, you can select the amount of records that you want to test. And once again, you will see that it's loading in real time. This will prevent you from having to go and look into your background job screen in IFS. Test mode is now successful with no issues on 24 rows. Once again, you see the different type of job ID here. And go ahead and migrate now. As you can see the results, we had no issues. The container status is now migrated, and all your buttons have turned green. We can go into container data and confirm 22 were inserted and 2 were updated. 0 failed. And now you can continue the rest of the migration. If you want to kick off multiple background migration jobs, you are able to run the import process. And once they are ready to go into the migration step, you can select them and click migrate. But remember, if you're going to kick off more than one migration job, they will run in their sequential order from your scope. NayoDM data migration has a functionality called Container Insights, in which you can review the files that you are currently loading, as well as being able to query the IFS table. Once you are in your data migration workspace, you can find the container data button here. And you are able to look at the insights for each of the containers within the migration scope. When you open the overview, you're able to see the details on the last migration process. But if you click on container data, you're able to look into more details. The first tab will show you the status of this container. In this case, we've only imported the data, we have not migrated. Container data allows you to query the records that you are currently loading using SQL. Here you can see the details on the record, and you'll be able to see all the fields in the table. You can also query the existing data in IFS for a part catalog. You can change your result up to 100 records, and here you can select the view. You can also download your result into a CSV file for either of your queries. Another example is supplier headers. As you can see, this is a migrated status. Once again, you can see the history of the last migration jobs. You can see the results here on the left. Since the status is migrated in this container, the overview will have more details. You can also query the data that you just migrated. And as you can see, this record from the file that we just migrated. And then you can query the records that you were loading, as well as the existing data in IFS during your migration process. This is an overview of migration workflows within the NayoDM tool. When you open NayoDM, this is going to be your landing page. On the top bar, you will navigate to migration workflows. If you want a step-by-step guide, you can click on the help button and you will see the overview, configure workflow, nodes, and workflow execution details. Once you have opened your migration workflows workspace, you can see that you have different options. Here you can control your backups to the cloud. Here's going to be your file storage, whenever you extract data. And you can also import or export any workflows that you create on your desktop for later use or for another user. Keep in mind that if multiple users are connected to the same environment, everyone has access to the workflows and templates and can make changes. In the workspace, you will see two tabs, Workflows and Templates. We recommend that you only execute those in templates. These have been configured, tested, and ready to be executed. Versus the workflows, are you still in the design mode? In workflows, you can either create your own workflow or you can execute. As you can see, we have multiple workflows in the design stage still. If you want to come in and update, you can select on configuration and open the settings of the node and make any changes necessary. You can also use this workflow as a template to begin a new design. You can export this and you can delete. We will go over creating a new workflow. And you can always search the workflow that you are looking for. Click on configure. Always begin with the start. And in this case, we're going to be doing an update. We're going to use a template that we currently have and update as needed for today's demonstration. You can also use preset shortcuts and API calls by typing in Nayo and narrowing down on the name as needed. We'll save configuration. Don't forget to make your connection. We now see the executions. Here's where we will see our results. We can run this as a test, and then we can execute. You have the options of running this in the foreground or background. Let's go look at our results. And within the execution screen, you will see the details on all your historical runs. You can see that this did execute, but there was an error. So you can look into the details here. I can see that it's an issue with the field name. So I'm going to go back and make those changes. And properly name the field. Let's do another test run. Foreground. Execution details. And that was successful. Since our test was successful, we can now execute this. And as you can see now, here's the details of your last run. It's been complete, and it was successful. You can also get more details here. In the Templates tab, you will see some of the more complex migration processes that we already created. For example, historical data, on-hand balances, backing up your table, or extracting the data. In this case, we're going to extract data from our parts table. Select our configurations here. We are going to extract from Part Catalog tab, and we want our file name to be Part Catalog 716. As you can see that change has been saved, we can go ahead and execute. And you can see the real-time progress here on your screen. You will see this prompt once it has completed. And you will go into file storage, and here's going to be our file. You can download this as a CSV or a JSON file. And that is how you create, update, and execute workflows with the NayoDM tool. We will be reviewing the NayoDM documents migration functionality. When you open the tool, this is your landing page. You always want to make sure that you confirm the environments that you are connected to. Once you're ready to begin the migration, you will go into the navigation bar and select Document Migration. With this tool, you are able to create and link new documents to business objects,
migrate bulk documents, and attach existing documents to business objects. Here's what the file will look like. And as you can see, the NayoDM tool tells you details on each of these headers. Once you're mapping your file, it will look like this. And the file folder will look like this. You will have your structure file as well as the documents that you are migrating. In this demo, we will be migrating documents and customer orders 1 and 2. Currently, we have 3 documents in customer order 1, and we have 0 documents in customer order 2. You will select file location, find your folder, select your folder, and here you will see the count of files that you have. Remember that one of these is your structure file and the rest of the documents. Once you're ready to begin, you will click on Start Migration, and you will see the real-time progress. Of the 5 files, 4 were able to be migrated, and we have 1 error because this file already exists attached to the customer order. If we go into Validate into IFS, here's our customer order 1. The documents already did exist, so did not migrate. And customer order 2. Here are the 3 other documents. Once you've completed the migration, you will see the log file that shows you the results of your last migration. Once this is complete, you can exit and clear out the migration, and that is the process to migrate documents using NayoDM tool.
With NayoDM's IAM client migration, you have the option to bulk create clients and service users into IFS Cloud using a single CSV file. In order to do so, you will navigate to IAM client migration. Here's your workspace. You can download the sample file. And as you can see, you have the details on all fields in your file. Once you have filled them out, your file should look like this. It will have a unique client ID. You can choose if it's going to be active or inactive. Once you're ready to load, you will select Files. And if you already have a service user that exists, you can leave this unchecked, or you can check it to make sure that it gets created in the process. Once you select Start Migration, you will see the progress start in real time. And here you have your results. It processed 1 row, 0 errors, and 0 skips. Once it is processed, you can go into IAM Client and IFS and confirm your build. And that is how you load IAM Client using NayoDM.